This video is brought to you by Dr. Kristen R. Bromley's Guitar Method Book Series and Online Music Academy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome to my online academy. It's so great to have you joining me here in these online lessons. In this video, we're going to take a look at some more complex rhythms. So we've been working on reading a lot of different melodies written with tablature. And with tablature, we spend most of our time really just going at things intuitively. It might be a melody that we already know, or we're listening. In the case of any of the melodies that we've played that you're not familiar with, you'd be listening to how I'm playing them right on those band tracks, so that you can sort of mimic the way I'm playing them. And that's how we really use tablature for the most part with guitar. It's sort of a learning mechanism that helps us learn how to play something that we want to learn how to play, that we're using as much our ear as our eyes to figure out how to play. But we're going to get some more complex rhythms. Mostly what we've been doing so far is with whole notes and half notes, dotted half notes, quarter notes, some tied rhythms, that sort of thing. But we're going to start getting into having eighth notes and 16th notes and even dotted figures that include some of those. And so that's a little bit more involved. So we just want to kind of get a feel for these rhythms before we start playing melodies that have them. So we're just going to do a quick overview here of the rhythmic figures that are written with standard music notation and how long they last for. And we're particularly playing a lot right now in 4/4 time or 3/4 time. So 4 solid beats per measure or 3 beats per measure, and those measures repeat. And we're mostly doing this intuitively, but every time we see written there in tablature on the pages that we're reading where those vertical lines are separating each of those measures, we have an equal number of beats in each of those measures. So let's take a look at the rhythmic value of the different types of notes that we actually play. So most commonly, I've got the most common ones up here on the board. So starting with a whole note, that's worth 4 counts. Nice open oval circle, 4 counts. And then we have what's called a dotted half note. The dot sitting next to a half note has that stem, is worth 3 counts. And then the actual half note, just that open oval but with a stem, is worth 2 counts. And then that quarter note is worth 1 count. So we're really breaking up the pie, so to speak, of our whole note by having 3/4, you could say, 3 pieces of that whole, which has 4 pieces, and then 2 pieces of that whole, so it's a half note, and then a quarter, it's only got 1 piece of that. That's sort of the standard solid. These things are played on the beat. These are sort of our common rhythms. Then we start breaking the beat, which is often that quarter note. The quarter note is often the beat. In half, we get what's called eighth notes. So instead of quarter notes, now we've broken that in half and we've got eighth notes. Eighth notes are worth 1/2 of a quarter note or 1/2 of a beat. And if they're written by themselves, they're going to have that solid oval and then the stem, and then they're going to have a little flag. If they're written with multiple notes that are flagged, there's going to be a beam instead that connects them together. So that could be 2, 3, 4, however many. We're going to see that. Usually they don't go beyond groups of 4, but they sometimes do depending on the meter or the time signature that we're in. So there may be meters down the road where you could have more beamed together, even 6 notes or so on. And it depends on how small the figures get that are all looped together into sort of a beat grouping. So we can get more. So these are the eighth notes right here. And then we've got 16th notes. We've broken the eighth note in half. These are worth 1/4 of that quarter note, and they have 2 flags or 2 beams. And then you can actually cut those in half and get a 32nd note worth 1/8 of 1 quarter note. Or even you could go to a 64th note. Seeing those is really rare. 32nd is kind of rare. 16th notes and 8th notes are the more common ones that we see. With these figures, when we add a dot to a note, it adds the length of half the value of that note to the length of that note. So with a half note, it's worth 2 counts. Half of its value is a quarter note, so it's as if we're going to combine a quarter note and a half note together. When we add that dot there, that dot is adding essentially the length of the quarter note to it, and we get 3 counts. So if we get dotted figures with our eighth notes or quarter notes, for example, with a dotted quarter note, half the value of that's like adding an eighth note to the value of the quarter note, so it becomes 1.5 beats long. Or when we have a dotted eighth note, it becomes 3/4 a beat long because we've got half the beat plus a quarter of the beat, the 16th note added to it, and it gets 3/4. We usually don't see other ones besides the eighth notes, quarter notes, and half notes, but you could have other figures and it would work the same way. These are the ones that we commonly see. Now we can have tied figures, and we've actually run into these in some of the melodies that we've already played, but we have two notes that are tied together with a little arched line. Then they combine together. We pluck them where the first note comes in and we hold them for the length of the two combined. So in this case, 2 plus 1 equals 3. We can also get tripletized figures. So with, for example, triplets of eighth notes, when we see them beamed together like this and a little 3 written, we're now knowing that instead of having 2 eighth notes that would equal that quarter note, we're going to force 3 notes into the time of that quarter note. Or in this case, 3 quarter notes. 2 quarter notes would normally take up the time of a half note. We're now forcing 3 quarter notes in the length of that half note. So that's sort of how those work. Now, in the Tablature Book from my method book series, if you turn to page 27, there's an exercise 31, that goes through and has some of these. And everything's written on that high open string. So what's great about this is you can jam right along with me and the band, and you can see those rhythms written. You don't even have to read the tablature, but you can start getting a feel for how they sound. Now, we're going to be using what we call even eighth notes. When we start subdividing the beat, or any of these notes that fall on the beat, but really our beat right now is generally the quarter note, 1, 2, 3, 4 beats per measure. When we start subdividing that and having things that are worth less than at least 1 beat, then we get into a place with eighth notes, especially eighth notes, 16th notes, where we can have what we call swung eighth notes or swung 16th notes, where the natural interpretation is to, rather than have things be in sort of this even fashion where everything's equal, to have the ones that fall in between the beat or on the off beat be pushed back further into the beat. So that becomes like a delay. Things can sometimes be interpreted that way depending on the groove of the song that we're playing. So that's just an FYI there. You're going to run into some songs that are going to be interpreted at different points with the more swung eighth notes. But as we're playing tablature, we're just going at it really kind of instinctively, listening for how we should play things as much as we're watching for those numbers on that tablature to help us know where to put our fingers. So most of the things with the Tablature Book, I really try and keep them intuitive, whereas like with note reading, we go through and work on these things specific, reading the rhythms. But just to sort of get used to plucking the rhythms that we're going to be playing with these next melodies, we're going to have this exercise 31 that's just on that open string, where you can get a feel playing along with me and the band for some of the different rhythms that are up here. There's no tied rhythms, but we've already done some of those, and we'll do some in the melodies that we play, no big deal. But getting in with the eighth notes, the 16th notes, and then dotted figures, and the triplets, that's going to happen a lot with number 31 to sort of give you a feel for it. So rather than me demonstrating and sort of explaining these rhythms, we're just going to jam together on number 31, and you can hear and sort of get a feel for the different rhythms there with that one. It's going to happen at 2 different tempos. Then in this video, we're going to continue to play number 32, 33, and 34. On pages 28 and 29. So we'll start on page 27, and then we'll go on to pages 28 and 29 and just jam together on a couple of those songs. Couple things with technique in the right hand. So you can play these with an all down pluck. Everything can be played with a down pluck. But as we start to get eighth notes and 16th notes, triplets, this sort of thing, it can help to actually alternate that plucking. So if you're not familiar with getting the right hand going in an alternating fashion, if you've just been using down plucks or you've just been using your thumb, if you're using your thumb, you won't be able to do up plucks very well. You could alternate thumb and index finger if you wanted to, or something like that, but using the thumb in an alternate plucking situation doesn't work very well for most people. There have been players who've developed a big callus there and can kind of get away with it, but really you want to do down plucks if you're using your thumb. But if you're using a pick and you haven't done up plucks before, then you can just go ahead and start trying on that open string to get the alteration happening. And then with some of the exercises that we've done in previous videos, like the open 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, open, what you can do is do 4 plucks per note, just alternating the direction. just like that, and work through those. I could keep going 4, 3, 2, 1, then do 2 plucks, and I just started on the first string there, and then do 3, keeping that alteration going, and then do 1. Any of the exercises that we've done in the past, however we've done them, the different ones that I've showed, you could work that in the right hand. Doing those multiple plucks can really help you sort of get locked in the right hand. Then when playing the melodies, it's okay if you need to, if you want, for the things that are spread a little further apart, where it's comfortable to do just down plucks, like quarter notes back to back, half notes, whole notes, those kinds of things. But when we get into 16th notes happening and 8th notes happening, there may be places where it's going to be really helpful to you to alternate that plucking direction. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jam together starting on number 31, page 27. Each of these are going to happen at 2 different tempos. First at a slower tempo and then a faster tempo like usual. So it'll be fun. You, me, and the band. Let's go ahead and jam together. Okay, great. I hope you're having fun with this and that it is helpful for you. In the next few videos that come out, which are part of this lesson series, we're going to continue to be reading melodies written on those top 3 strings in those first 4 frets plus the open strings. And we're going to have some of these rhythms happening where we've got some more 8th notes, 16th notes, dotted figures, any triplets even, those kinds of things happening in our melodies. So we'll just be playing those melodies. It's going to be great. I'll see you in the next video.
Thanks for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And be sure to check out more great content. You can find more information about me and my products at KristenBromley.com. Take care.